Hi Andy, how are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Gareth. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you. What are we covering in today's show?
In today's show, we're going to be covering Tour Talk because obviously we've seen the close out of the 2020 season on the European Tour. Little touch on the US Open ladies, so they can close their season out. Of course, that's delayed because of weather. And we've got some equipment. We've got Edison wedges. New breakout, first person in the UK to test them. Wow, what a privilege, what an honour. More to follow. And, freedom of equipment in the golf bag, something that potentially is going to shape the golf bags for 2021. So looking forward to getting started. Let's go.
Shall we get going? Do you
Why
want to
not?
press the intro button?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Hi and welcome to the Andy Gorman Golf One Putt podcast, and we're here today to talk about the end of the European Tour golf season, which seems like a long season, but it's partly just because it's disrupted, because it's a long season ordinarily anyway. And in about 3 weeks' time, they'll be back at it again. And of course, the ladies' US Open, which is disrupted. So there's not a lot to talk about that. And we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a chance to talk about equipment, what's in the bag, etc. And, stuff that I've been trying, stuff that you might want to have a little look out for. So I'm here with my trusty wingman, Gareth. Good to see you, mate. I trust you've had a great weekend. There's been a lot going on. Yeah. Have you watched any of it?
So with the golf, I thought it was a nice finale to the European Tour season. I think anything that ends in the sunshine and the way it did, that there was 4 guys in the race at the end of it. Patrick Reid, nice little chip in at the end. I just wanted to touch on that, Andy. What are your thoughts on Reid's short game? Because it seems to me to be electric. Looks like he's going to chip in anywhere. His putting's hot. What do you like about it?
There's a lot I like about it, to be honest with you. I think he's very creative and very field-oriented player anyway. He's worked extremely hard in the last season or so with a new coach, sort of shaping the golf ball a little bit more left to right. He's trying to get more playability into his game. We know a lot of players have tried that in the past and failed miserably. It's a very brave decision to make, primarily because you end up with a double miss, and sometimes better to have just one. You're going to have a miss, so at some point there's going to be an errant shot. So the last thing you want is a left-sided miss if you're playing down the left-hand side. A left is just going to kill you. So, it's a very brave thing to do. I think players who generally try to draw the golf ball, generally draw the golf ball, not try, but draw the golf ball, have a better stock of making the change to left to right. I think the left to right golfer struggles to control the draw. And that's probably a very general sweeping statement. And if there were any stats on this, we'd go, it's pretty 50-50. But I just think the players generally, it's a lot easier to control the loss of, to the right, whilst trying to learn to maneuver the golf ball left to right. And I think the reason why making the switch from right to left flight to left to right is the control. So, as a player, and then, I'll throw a caveat into that. As a player gets older, he struggles with turning a little bit more. So, then, turning is, very constitutional towards holding off the hook. So, you've got to at some point learn to control it, otherwise you lose your game. So, we've seen Dustin Johnson obviously go from right to left to, being able to hit this control fade. Strong grip, strong position at the top of the swing. David Duval comes to mind, Paul Azinger comes to mind. Guys who have strong grips, holding everything off to make sure that they can hit the fade or not hit it left. So Patrick Reid moving the golf ball, left to right will then ultimately improve his short game, because the relationship of club face to path to produce the fade will ultimately improve his short game. So, it is one of those things that it is almost a byproduct of improving your ball flight. Actually, that's not fair. A left to right is not an improvement. It is a new skill, but you do have some control. You'll lack something. There's a trade-off. The run out, the roll, the carry, maybe a little bit less on that. But Patrick does hit the golf ball a decent enough distance, so he can afford to trade the little run out. And I'm sure he can still get the golf ball smoking off the tee, because he can move it out there. So if he needs to hit one a little bit slinging right to left to get another 20 yards of roll, I'm sure he can still do that. But I think from my experiences, when you sort of take the left-hand side of the course out of play, what tends to happen at that point then is you just bail out the hook. You just do not want to play anything right to left. It's unless of course you get a good driver in the bag, and it allows you to do so without any major consequences. So
I think he plays with the driver less the one model down from yours, Andy. I think he's got the G4.
Well, he did. He was using the ping, and he's now switched to the Titleist TSI 3. And as a lot of players tend to be doing that. So, there's a lot of traction in that driver. And we'll come back to that, because I think it's a really important thing, that we can air about the freedom of the bag these days. And more players seem to be doing it. And I think we'll see more and more of it going forward. I think it'll be, there's a lot of good reasons why that's happening. And some of that's the sign of the times that we're in. Yeah. And I like it. I like the fact that potentially could be the case. But I think, let's get back to the DP World and the European Tour race to Dubai. A fantastic event. As is always, Dubai hosts events really, really well. The golf courses are spectacular. Last week, of course, we didn't touch on it, the fire course, and now the earth course. The two courses there at Jumeirah, they are spectacular. They are fantastic. I've been very fortunate to be able to get onto them, albeit I couldn't play the earth course because it was preparing for the tournament. I was there just a few days before the DP last year, but was hosted very nicely. On the fire course, and what a terrific golf course. And it's good to see how some of the guys were struggling with it, because it is a brute. It's a Greg Norman design. They typically are tough. They're designed to beat the better player up. And of course, in true, Andy Gorman fashion, you might as well play off the black tee. You only get a chance. Might only get a chance to do it once. If I went there again, I probably wouldn't play all of them off the back tee. It's pretty brutal. It's as you would expect, and they are fabulous golf courses, conditions, practice facilities. It's just spectacular. Maybe not quite as spectacular as Leopard Creek. I was just in South Africa last 2 weeks ago, but there's some just the whole facility, everything about it. It's just right, and of course, it's what you can do when you got the money. So, you're not going to put a third-rate facility together when you've got all the money that you can throw at it to make it perfect from the start. So, as with anything, you make adjustments, you make changes, you improve as you go. But if you can get it pretty much right to start with, then you will. So it's a spectacular event. Par 5 to finish always can throw in the mix of what will happen here. Is it going to be an eagle? We've seen eagles in the past. The 3-wood that Stenson hit in there, 2 3-woods at the last there to about 18 inches, if I remember rightly, for an eagle to win and close out spectacularly. And of course, this year, Matt Fitzpatrick to win the tournament, and Lee Westwood to bring up the rear really nicely to end up winning the race to Dubai. in spectacular fashion. You know, I mean, he started the season really well with a win in Abu Dhabi, so of course he likes the area, and who doesn't? I tell you what, if you don't like Dubai and the Emirates and the, you know, all around Abu Dhabi, to go and play golf, you know, in perfect conditions, poor show really.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, the old stalwart, you know, European Tours talisman, Lee Westwood, you know, winning, you know, what's he won? 25 events now, 3 Order of Merits, and it's spectacular, you know, and it's you know, testament to the fact that he is grinding. He's desperate to get that maiden major championship. You know, of course, he fared well at Augusta, but you know, maybe the course was just playing a little bit too long for him. You know, it's going to play long for most people, to be fair. So it's nothing to do with, you know, Lee's long enough and solid enough. But you know, maybe, you know, we get the opportunity to see that happen again in, you know, in April.
Or could he do it at St George's? I know he's got a great
I
open
was just going to
record.
say, I think, you know, I mean, look, there's a lot there. There's a feel good factor. If St George's suits his eye, I don't know that it does or doesn't. But of course, his good mucker Darren Clark won down there the last time it was there, so there's some good vibes there. And of course, that's his maiden, you know, was his maiden and only major victory. So maybe there's just a little bit of something in there. And of course, if he can keep this kind of form going, you know, he's rolling the ball well, which is good to see. And if he can, you know, continue to hit it as well as he always has done off the tee and his iron shots, you know, then maybe St George's is the place for him to get it done. But yeah, we'll have to wait until July.
What do you think of the format in terms of the comparison as well to like the FedEx Cup? So how do you like the kind of almost like 2 tournaments in one, isn't it? Really, it's the kind of main DP and then it's the Tour Championship or the Order of Merit. How does it compare, do you think, to the FedEx Cup, and what do you like and dislike about it?
I mean, I prefer it to the FedEx Cup in the way that, you know, it does seem to culminate. I mean, yeah, okay, we get down to the last 60 players. I think is there at the end of at the beginning of the week, and the fact that obviously there's a few of those will be sort of tussling at the end of it. It didn't really happen this year, which, you know, the winners and losers, it always tends to be, didn't really happen. I think that's just testament to the fact that, you know, we've had that year with disruption and the monies didn't change. You know, the purses went down, you know, significantly through the summer because of it. But, you know, I think for everybody concerned, the fact that we had tournaments and the guys were prepared, who wouldn't be prepared to play? You've had it all taken. It's like having your arms chopped off, isn't it? And then somebody says, "Hey, there's a new set of arms. You can go and play with those." It's literally like that. It's, you know, so it's a lifeline to your lifestyle. You know, you're going to want to do that. So, you know, as in the past, you may well have found some of the guys playing for that sort of money. You know, because, you know, some of the events a little bit more than Challenge Tour money, but, you know, satellite money earnings to some kind of degree. I know it's ridiculous because most of us are, you know, will struggle to earn that in about 5 years, some of these winnings. But you know, yeah, it's great to see the whole thing come together in a way that you know, culminated with the same degree of tension and, you know, excitement. And I think, you know, hats off to the European Tour for getting it done. Race to Dubai for me is a season-long event, and rather than, you know, in effect, what can pivot over 4 tournaments like FedEx, because yeah, you've got to be in the right place at the right time with FedEx, but, you know, you can go from 0 to hero in 4 weeks, as we've seen in the past, and struggle to, you know, I mean, that's not going to happen in, you know, Race to Dubai. You know, if you're at the front, you're at the front, you know, but it means that it's season long. And I guess this year is probably not as, because of the disruption, because of the monies that were there in the early, you know, Desert Swing tournaments are well paid, you know, events. We didn't have the depth of a purse with the Rolex events that we've had, you know, in previous years, and, you know, probably rightly so. And, you know, so there were, you know, a lower earnings scenario, but it's relative anyway. The guys on tour are doing pretty well. If you're playing well, you're doing well. And you've got to play well. You're going to make a living at sport. You've got to play well. You've got to perform well. So that I got nothing against anybody picking up $10 million. If that's what their game allows them to do, the opportunities are there at the end of the day. And it is entertainment, but it's the guys do work really hard for it. You don't fluke it. Nobody flukes it. Only oftentimes takes a lifetime of hard work to get to that point. And there's only a few people. In the last 10 years, there's only been 10 people who've won the FedEx Championship. So that's where you have to look at it. It doesn't come to you. You've got to work very hard at it. And yes, very different kind of work to somebody who's holding a scalpel and saving a life, or looking after social media accounts, of course. So, it's a very different lifestyle, but, it's, at the end of the day, I don't begrudge anybody in sport, maybe apart from a few footballers who kick a bag of wind around and, for a course of £1 million a week, whether they play or not. I mean, I struggle with that. I struggle with the lack of performance. You've got to go out there and earn it like the tennis player does, like the golfer does. But if you're getting paid for not playing, I struggle with that.
Isn't it? I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you on that one. What are your thoughts on kind of Fitzpatrick's game, and in particular his short game? What do you like about it?
He had an egg on his face, didn't he, 6 weeks ago? Talking about how we can't compete against, this bombing game that, sort of, it almost as if he was like, throwing his toys out the pram a bit, and then he comes out and wins. That's not an easy golf course, and there are definite advantages to being able to hit the golf ball a long way, because then you're left with shorter clubs into the greens. But Matt's got a game that you've got to maximize everything that you've got, and I think it shows you that he's. I don't know. I have no idea whatsoever. Because we're all detached from the tour. Even the guys on the tour are detached from it a bit more this year. But I've got no reason to believe or to discredit the fact that somebody's pulled him to one side, had a word in his ear, and gone, get a grip on yourself. You've got another 10 or 15 years of career, 20 if you grinding it out. You could, one, make a really good fortune for yourself, but also through the fortune, make a really good name for yourself. Look at Zach Johnson's ground 2 major championships out of a 275-yard drive. And that sounds like a long way, but it isn't. Not in comparison to the tours, players that are out there. When the average is 290, that's a club and a half behind, and then another club and a half behind going into the greens. So you're 2.5, 3 clubs behind by the time you hit your approach shot. So if the guy's out there hitting it 15 past you, he's going to hit it 15 past you again with his irons. So, you're going in with 5 iron, he's going in with 8 iron, he's towering it over the short front pin, and you've got a draw to a front right pin. He can go in with an 8 iron soft cut, and you're going in with a draw over a pin that's not going to be lucky if you can hold it on the green, especially as they firm up in the majors. And yet he's managed it. 2 majors, he's got one of the most significant, sort of tournament CVs. I think, if I remember rightly, he's at 14 wins, 2 majors. There's not many guys, in any point in their career, but in the 40s that have got that many wins. So, very significant. By grinding it out, just accepting what you've got and getting the best from it, and putting your wedge game to play. Now, that's what you've got to do. If your weakness is distance and your strength is wedges, go and practice your strengths. Because short of getting in the gym, bulking up to a point where you can gain more speed, and I'm not saying bulking up as in put another 40 pounds on, because there's different ways of doing it, and different body frames are going to do it. Matt's not going to look, he's not going to look good, and he's not going to move good if you put 40 pounds on.
He's smaller than us, isn't he, Andy? He's about 5'6", isn't he? About 5'8".
Yeah, he's not a big fellow at all, and so work with what you've got. Zach Johnson's the same. I think Zach's 5'9", and I'm going to say about 165 pounds, so 11 stone ish, and gets every ounce out of his skill. And that's all Matt's got to do. He's keep getting every ounce out of his skill. There's going to be some tournaments you just know you're not going to be able to compete, but that doesn't mean you can't go and bank another 50,000 euros and put another notch on the post of getting yourself into another race to Dubai, which gives you an opportunity to then go and put another mil or two into the account, because you've put yourself in a position to be able to do it. Is he going to be able to compete at Augusta? Probably not. But could he compete at the Masters, at the Open, because he can get it low and running? Yeah. So, but then saying that, look, Zach Johnson won a Masters, and he won a Masters in boggy conditions, cold, wet, damp conditions, almost similar to what, was being played in, albeit they did play a little bit warmer. He played with the highest winning score in recent record, certainly in the last 20 or so years. And he didn't hit a single par 5 in 2. Now, the reason why he won is because he dialed in, I want to say something like 11 out of 16 of the par 5s, that he played for the week in birdie. And he did it with his wedges. So irrespective, if you can do that and birdie half of the par 5s with your wedges, then you're going to give yourself a fighting chance. Now, of course, if the tournament runs away like it did this year, then you're not going to give yourself half a chance. You've got to be better than that. But, it just means the conditions elsewhere on the course are also much better as well. So, just got to find a way. Gary Player wasn't the longest player when he got out there, didn't stop him winning 7 majors. And all of those things, you just got to keep looking at it and going like, right, okay, he learned how to hit it a lot further. So there's ways to do it, but all the time it comes back to wedges. Yeah. If you get that good with those, you don't have to worry about it, and that's, look, as good as Tiger was, he didn't win every week. As good as Dustin is, he's not winning every week. So you just, if you get half a dozen chances a year to win, then, you're giving yourself a fighting chance, to be in the right place at the end of the year. And he's going to make a very good career out of it, I don't know, I can't recall how many wins he's had now, but, 3 or 4, but I mean, that's already starting to get to be a very decent career. Not short of the few bucks that he's put in his bank account either.
Yeah. I've got a trivia question for you. What have Matt Fitzpatrick and Zach Johnson got in common?
Apart from a really good short game.
Think about the short stick. Think about the flat stick. What has happened with their flat sticks over the past few months and years? What have their manufacturers done?
They built something specifically for them.
Bingo, off the copy of their previous putter. So Matt Fitzpatrick, has he now moved to a Bettinardi putter? He has moved to
Bettinardi.
What did he have before?
He was using a Yes putter, which of course with the C groove design was designed by Howell Swash quite a long time ago now, but it's a product that he's had in the bag for 12 years. But he's put, he's obviously had a nice little negotiation taking place, and Bettinardi's acquired the rights to be able to reproduce the C groove onto a putter. And subsequently, with a few changes in his bag over the season, certainly, he has a replica Tracy 2 putter in the bag. And, putters do get battered, beaten, and it doesn't matter how well you do things and how well you look after them. After 12 years, a putter's going to be a little bit worn out. And especially with the C groove, we've seen the wear spot on Tiger's putter. That's a flat, milled face putter. When you've got literally like razor type blade edges striking the ball, they're much more, sort of reluctant to stay in their original form than the flat surface. So if you're hitting the sweet spot the way that, Matt does, then you're going to wear it out. So he was in need of a new putter, I would have said probably 3 or 4 seasons ago. just not going to last. I mean, I can remember I've got a couple of C Group putters from my back playing days, and you know that they don't last. You know, I mean, they don't because they can't. You know, it is literally as simple as that. They're just a sharp piece of blade. You know, very much like a razor blade point, not quite that sharp, although I did shave the side of my face with one particular edition, the first one. I was able to chop a few bits out and leave a bit of a rough spot. But you know, they were they were a really good putter.
They were
really good, and that's super feel.
Yeah.
And it was that putter that switched me to groove face putters. It's, you know, Harold knew a thing or two about, you know, what a ball felt like coming off a less metal, and you know, and how to configure a shape on the face that produced a more effective roll on the ball and feel, and you know, yeah, they got he got the job done very nicely. So you know, and obviously Matt knew for many years how good that putter was and liked the feel of it from his junior days, and you know, that was it. It's been in the bag ever since. So until he found a replacement that was going to be as good or better, you know, and I was supposed to say that it's not better, because it should perform better because it's 100%. It's milled pure and smooth, and you know, with those grooves in the right place with no dents or you know any sort of rough spots or flat spots, it's going to perform more significantly. So yeah, so I've got no reason to see why, you know, he wouldn't improve his putting stats on the back of that. But,
and it was really interesting. I think you touched on it before about it's pretty much five. I think, three of the five players who were in the race for Dubai and the kind of end of year championship have got like a free bag. So they've got no attachment in terms of manufacturers. How has that been a game changer, especially over the last 18 months?
Well, I think over the last few years, I mean, you know, probably the most significant one would have been Brooks Koepka, and you know, a lot of it changed when Nike went, you know, sort of closed the door on its operation and said, right, that's it. We're not making clubs anymore. And of course, then so many players just went, whoa, hold on a minute. Well, now what do we do? So, you know, and I think an awful lot of those players were in a position where they could turn around and say, I don't need the money. And of course, then, you know, comes the opportunity to try different equipment out. You know, Brooks and Tommy Fleetwood both went from Nike to putting Mizuno in the bag, and Paul Casey did the same, which stands, you know, really good testimony for the quality of the product, because, you know, by making a non-financial choice, you know, to play what they wanted to play, they chose to play with Mizuno irons. Interestingly, none of them chose to play with Mizuno wedges. So, you know, kind of what's going on there. Got to be honest with you, I think the new ones are really nice. But again, I think, you know, Mizuno wedges, there's always a product in the bag that's a little bit sort of Marmite. You know, you either love it or you hate it, and you know, it's you know, it is literally one of those types of products. And I used to like some of their Black Ox wedges.
Oh yeah, nice.
Back around about 20 years ago, they were awesome. But yeah, you know, it's a nice small compact head. They could, you know, grooves to shred a golf ball with, you know, as we did back then. And they kind of lost their way, I think, in shape and, you know, playability, performance. They've got every wedge, bounce, grind, you know, loft, everything going on in that, in their makeup. So, you know, I saw some last week with one of my clients came in, you know, we're looking at short game and just going through the bag and checking everything out, and, you know, and they look nice. When it comes to it, wedges, you know, you've got to put in the bag something that's going to work. I think to some degree, you know, the best players in the world will find an iron they like the look of and can work the golf ball through the bag, you know, doing what they want to do with it. You know, and that's why you see, you know, I come back to Matt Fitzpatrick. He's had a set of S55 irons, which trying to think when they came out. You know, I mean, that's a
long
long time ago. It's got to be 10 years with some I-25s in the long end of the bag, if I can recall correctly. So, you know, he got playability and forgiveness in there from Ping, and, you know, he's playing I-210s. You know, so I know why he's made that choice, because they are really good.
Because the main man's playing them, that's why.
Yeah, they're good enough for Andy Gorman. You know, good enough for Matt Fitzpatrick and Lee Westwood and a few others. You know, I think you see now, I mean, Garcia's in with a set of clubs. You know, there's another one. You know, I think Patrick Reid's obviously got his...
Justin Rose as well, isn't it? Justin Rose,
yeah. And I think a lot of it's going to come down, it's going to be, you know, there's a political statement for you, but with the current climate that we're all in now, the golf industry is going to turn around and say, the golf manufacturer can turn around and say, you know what, I can't afford to pay you. Now, to some degree, that's a very dangerous game to play. And if they genuinely can't afford to pay, then that's where they're going to be. You know, and I think you'll find that some of the manufacturers that the players are going to now, as they're given their choice, are going to really step up to the plate. I've noticed an awful lot of ping bags out there. You know, now, is it because nobody else wants the player? And, you know, I can't say that, not with Ping. And I do know Ping are not paying the money. They never have paid the big money. So, you know, a lot of players have gone from Ping because they've got better contract offers elsewhere. Not recently necessarily, but, you know, it's happened. So, you know, I think Ping pay fair. And, you know, they've obviously got what, you know, we call icon players these days, you know, the talismans, you know, Bubba Watson and of course then Lee Westwood this side, you would say, would be the icon players of the European and PGA Tour. Bubba just signing a lifelong contract.
That's mad, that, isn't it? That's amazing.
You know, and I think that would also, you know, would be a nice honour bestowed upon Lee, whether or not that would happen. You know, he's always played Ping from junior right the way through, and, you know, a stalwart of technology that has been 10, 12 years in, you know, in the bag. I mean, he played Zing 2s forever, didn't he? Until I-10s came out, and then, you know, you saw the benefit of that. But he's not a guy that's going to switch and swap and do crazy things anyway. So, you know, when it comes down to it, I think you've got players making informed choices on things that they like the look of and like the feel of. And they're probably, because they've earned as much money as they have in the past, their bank accounts are now full enough that, you know, they can afford to not take somewhere between 50 and $250,000, you know, payout, whether that's per annum or per contract. The guys who are further down the bag, you know, further down the tour rankings, in and around 100 going up, you know, probably will have to take the club, you know, contract that will become slimmer on the ground. And, you know, who knows, the equipment in the bag now may be less of an issue than the bag itself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And
you know, or you know, the bag becomes the poster boy, doesn't it? You know, at the end of the day, it becomes the billboard. So I think that, you know, you'll find a lot more open bags, you know, not necessarily branded bags, you know, golf branded bags. And you'll see, like, you know, the Spieths of this world and Tiger, and, you know, I mean, Tiger's never, as far as I can remember, had a bag. I mean, he had Buick for years.
Buick, did you?
Yeah, he didn't have a Nike bag, did he? So
No.
he had Buick right the way through, and then subsequently from there, he's got some crappy, shitty drink company. Yeah, I've said it. Sugary drinks, they're not worth anybody's endorsement, to be perfectly honest with you. So, so I think, you know, when we've got you know, when we're looking at these opportunities to brand, you know, then the bag probably is the biggest opportunity, because that's what's seen. And then, of course, the shirt, you know, what is that left chest logo worth? You know, and we know that it's worth good money in, you know, on certain players. Tiger's never had anything else on his shirt other than the swoosh. So, you know, And again, you know, I've got no problem with that. If they turn and say, right, we're having that, it's plain. That's all you're going to have on there. That's you either can have the TW on the back and the swoosh on the front, or the TW on the front and the swoosh on the bow, wherever it happens to be. It's that and nothing else. All your other brands, they can go and do one. They can't even have your cap right. All your attire is going to be that. That's fine. You know, that's worth the power of the negotiation, isn't it? At the end of the day, so. You know, and I think you're going to see the changing face of golf going forward will be, you know, how we market players. You'll see the Poulters of this world, you know, with badges on every part of his body that can be viewed. And, you know, and again, I've got no problem with that. You know, we've talked about this, obviously, you know, I mean, I've had a few brands, you know, my clothing in the past, and, you know, whether you have or whether you do or you don't, again, I've got no problem.
What we are open to is golf@andydo@gorman.com. Please drop us a line if you want to find a space on Andy's shirt.
There's always space available, again, for the right product. You know, because I have, you know, I've got my ethical stance on stuff. You know, I've been approached in the past and, you know, said no. So, you know, there are things that I won't endorse, you know, and I just can't, you know, it goes beyond my ethical stance. So, yeah, it has to be the right fit, and that's all. And with all these players, you know, it has to be the right fit for them. So, you know, I've got no issues. Tiger, that's what Tiger wants to endorse, you know, on his golf bag. That's absolutely fine by me. You know, as far as Tiger's concerned, you know, it's not. I know what, you know, where I stand on it. I've said it. You know where I stand on it, but ultimately, I'm not going to endorse a sugary drink for, you know, for any good reason. There is no good reason to endorse a sugary drink. Simple as that. You can't drink. You know, we were laughing at an advert the other night with Guinness Clear. I thought it was drink responsibly. I just thought it was fantastic. So you know, bit of Guinness Clear.
Talking about bags, you've got a new addition to the bag. I know this has been tested, and you kind of you're quite happy with the results. Would I be kind of not shy to say that's the kind of fact?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've done some fairly as rigorous testing as you can at this time of the year on really horrible surfaces, really, because it's very wet. Yeah, there's a new set of wedges in the bag, still under test. Still with my tried and trusted shaft and grip options in there. So
what have you got in them, Andy? What have you got in the shaft?
I have got the grip. The grips are, you know, Lampkin TS1s, which you know, I continue to use those.
Lovely grip. Lovely grip.
I love the feel of it. I think it's and the colorway works well with the black and red label that's on the shaft, which is of course KBS. So I've got the 610s in the wedges.
Beautiful.
Providing a really strong flight on the shot. Perfect all year round. It's a shaft that I have tested in the past and have used quite extensively in the past. I do switch between that and S-Taper. S-Taper has a slightly softer feel to it. Not so much in terms of, you know, flex, but I mean, S-Taper's got the swing profile of the C-Taper with a little bit more feel. And I think it makes a really good, you know, sort of wedge shaft. But I wanted to try 610s in the new Edison wedges, and just to see how they performed for no particular reason. You know, it was just a case of, you know, I was looking for it's a shaft that I can rely on, as well as the S-Taper. But it was something I was looking to, you know, I like to keep the flight on my wedges down. I think it's a shaft that is designed to do that. The work that Kim Braley's done, you know, on that particular shaft, takes the spin out of it. Knowing that there was enough spin, according to the marketing blurb and to the conversations that we'd had with Terry Kohler from Edison, who's designed the wedges. You know, I've been very fortunate to be the first person in the UK to test them. And, you know, so far, I have to say that in testing with GC Quad, we have some incredibly powerful numbers coming out of them. So one of the biggest challenges in wedge shots is controlling the flight of the shot when you miss the sweet spot, because the sweet spots aren't very big. And, you know, Terry can say this better, but if we had him on here, then we'd need a week of podcasting to be able to, editing would
Especially
be on forever.
You pair wax waxing
yeah, we
about
can.
wedges.
We've both got a passion for wedges, that's for sure. But I think even Terry can push my passion to another level. But, you know, he's got 40 plus years of experience, you know, in designing wedges. So what he's done is he's raised the bar in terms of the sweet spot. He's lifted the sweet spot from, not just lifted, but he's actually turned the sweet spot on its head. So it actually comes higher up the face. I suppose I could have brought one in front of the camera and that would have been well prepared, but you didn't prepare me for this.
I will put one on the screen. As you're speaking now, by the power of magic,
and essentially what, you know, what he's done is when you miss the sweet spot high up the face, you get a very flat, dead, you know, sort of flight on the golf ball. And generally speaking, you'll lose somewhere between 10 and 20% of the smash factor. And a smash factor we generally rely upon in terms of, you know, how well does a driver perform. If you get the smash factor close to 1.5, then you'll get the relationship between the club head speed and the ball speed, and that gives you that sort of calculation. So the better you strike the ball, the higher the number, the more ball speed you get, the more club head speed you've got, etc. So that's really important for a driver, but actually it's probably more important for a wedge, because a typical wedge shot is going to be running at about 1.2, 1.25. And, you know, you're typically going to be hitting that thing around about the 130 yards maximum. But if that comes down by 20%, that comes right the way down then to a 1 smash factor. And all of a sudden, your club head speed is irrelevant because the golf ball's falling out of the sky. Yeah. You know, it doesn't matter about what your club head speed, it is what it is. And, you know, it doesn't matter if it's mid 80s, you know, all of a sudden that ball is falling out of the sky and it comes down 20 yards short or 10 yards short. It doesn't matter how many yards short it comes down. If you're playing to a front pin, you're now plugged in a trap in front. You could be in a water hazard. You could have a shot over a bunker. Now, instead of having a dialed in shot, which was relatively straightforward because the ball was sitting up in the rough, you've come into it a little bit down, a little bit steeper. The ball's half an inch up the club face and the ball's just died, especially slightly into the breeze. So, you know, you've now got yourself no shot, you know, and so instead of going birdie or par recovery, you know, you're now staring bogey, double bogey, and, you know, anything can happen. So, interestingly, my first shot was a 20-yard pitch out of the rough. I just threw the ball down in the rough, popped the ball onto the green, rolled out nicely into the hole. Pretty good start. And then I hit a whole bunch of others, just chucking the ball down, just letting it go into this slightly muddy, squelchy, you know, wet, typically winter green surround. Like I say, 20-yard shot, and I was staring down putts of well and truly inside 6 foot. I hit 10 balls. I got 6 balls, 1 in the hole, and the other 6 balls inside of a club length. The others were inside 6 feet. So that's one of my sort of tests, as you know, and you know, from the lies, which were literally nothing, it didn't really matter because it's one of those things that actually you can sit the ball up in the rough and actually the club goes straight underneath it. You get this dead flight out of it. What I've noticed around the greens is that it gets a little bit higher on the club. The ball comes out a little bit flatter and it hits the ground and releases. So it will land shorter, but it will release towards the hole. So what was happening in the dead shots, which was, you know, I'm kind of trying to hit bad shots as well as trying to hit good shots to see what happens to it. So, you know, and it then gets to a point where your next batch of balls, you kind of don't care because, you know, you can respond to, you know, you can make notes on what you're experiencing. And, you know, what I experienced with the Edison wedges, that anywhere on the face, up and down, you know, your strike is going to be, yes, the flight will change, but the effective result, if you've got a 20 mile an hour swing, you get a 20-mile-an-hour result rather than, potentially hitting it like a 12-mile-an-hour, because it almost feels like that. You lose, sort of half the swing speed. It's almost like you've hit the golf ball at half the swing speed when you miss hit it half an inch, 3/4 of an inch at the club. So that's what I've noticed. What I have also noticed is that between the heel and the toe, the left-right miss, so the common miss that we generally talk about, that does have the same sort of effects as, a Ping or a Vokey or, a Callaway. It doesn't matter. Any other kind of tour performing wedge, it has a very similar miss effect. So, gets a little bit dead and comes a little bit, stops very quickly if you miss it half an inch towards the toe. So what I've found with it so far is that the sweet spot's gone vertically up the club face as against horizontally across the club face. I like that because actually, I can find the sweet spot, in the center of the club. It's a fairly small, compact head. When you put it down, it has a nice looking profile. It's not, in your face, as peculiar, but it's what he's done behind the club that, has given it a bit more muscle behind the club. And, so far, incredible. And plus that I've also added to it the slightly incrementally longer shaft as against what we'd ordinarily see as shorter in the wedges. So to clarify, my sand iron now is half an inch longer, and then there's I'll get this right, an eighth of an inch difference between each of the clubs going up to the pitching wedge, so that they're all a fraction longer. Instead of the 1/4 inch differential that you would have ordinarily. So they're playing a little bit more like one length wedges, which means that they're performing much more consistently anyway, and I noticed yesterday I'm hitting fuller shots off the practice mat. Got I think it's a True Strike practice mat at the local range. So you can get into that a little bit and you can miss it up the face a little bit. I'm trying to hit these shots, trying to hit them bad, to miss the sweet spot and find out what the difference is. Actually, it flights really nicely. So, so far, it's an impressive club. I've played it out of bunkers as well. I would say that I've got, apart from one, I've got up and down out of every single one. They're all inside a club length, which, as you know, it's a gimme. So get it inside a club length, it's a gimme. So so far, I'm looking forward to actually getting out onto the golf course and putting them in there. That's going to be sort of really interesting scenario. So do
you think the guys are onto something? Because I know we talk about so much forgiveness with woods and then even into the irons, but it's not really talked about with the wedges, is it? The forgiveness factor of a wedge?
No, it's not. I mean, the most forgiving aspect of a wedge we've had in recent years has been the high toe, hasn't it? High toe, which arguably, this is the great thing about it, arguably goes back to the 1980s with Ping Guy 2. It's come full circle.
Great wedge.
Weren't they just? In fact, I've got a wedge. I've got the Gorge XG wedge in the bag, and it's in the bag. So it's in the bag. It sits in the practice bag. It's too upright for me, and it needs flattening down by 3 degrees. And it's like, they're hard work to change. So it may well be one of those that just sling it in a box and send it up to Ping and ask them to flatten it for me. But the higher toe gives you different playability, gives you that sort of area to miss. Of course, putting grooves out on the toe of the club as well helps create a bit of grip. So the ball's not going to react in any peculiar manner coming out there. But that means then that you're playing towards a miss hit. And what that does for you, so we do know that produces a flattened flight. It produces, quite high spin. Can do, again, you've got to strike it in a certain way to get it. And, it offers a different dimension. But wedges notoriously have become more and more player oriented. And we're expecting 20 handicap golfers to go out and, perform with a wedge that's designed for a tour player.
Exactly.
Tour players are going to miss the sweet spot high and low on the club face, period, just because the lie will dictate that you will. Angle of attack and lie, we see that all the time. You see, even Matt Fitzpatrick, I think on Saturday, hit a shot, short-sighted himself, and hit a shot that just didn't go, he came out dead. Just mishit it and just didn't come off the club face. I think it's interesting that Vokey haven't gone the route of high toe, so they're probably not going to now because it's been around for a couple of 3 seasons. So you've got Wilson, Callaway, and TaylorMade have gone that way. Ping have got their high toe wedge with their I2 offering of their Glide 3 wedges.
But the new Mizunos have gone very Edison in terms of CG at the wedge.
Yeah, they have. They've raised the CG. So I think what's happening now is you're starting to see manufacturers, and obviously it goes right up to the top end of the spectrum with PXGs. They're starting to put tungsten weights higher up the club, partly to increase the height, or I suppose increase the height is just one of the centre of gravity of the club. So, it can target that mishit. It'll flatten the flight. And if you've got good groove technology and, understanding on how to strike a golf ball, then you're going to get enough spin. So, and if you need a flatter flight, a more elevated flight, and you play with more loft. So, I think this is where we're going to see wedge design change. And, I like the PXG model of being able to maneuver the weight around using different weighted screws. So use a heavy tungsten type screw at the top. And, let's just say you've got 10 screws around the club, and, some are going to go low, some are going to go high, some out towards the toe, some a little bit more towards the heel. You can play with that a little bit more. And it's, I think manufacturers need to start to look at that, because that's, that would be the way to go from my point. That you want to hit the golf ball a little bit higher than just drop a load of weight down in the bottom. You create versatility and you create forgiveness. So I think those guys are onto something, and definitely Edison are going onto it. The only downside is price point. Wedges are quite usable products, as in you're going to wear them out. You play a lot of shots with them, and you're going to knock those grooves out. I know that Edison wedges have got they're forged heads, so they've got terrific feel, unlike the Vokeys that you see on the shelf, where they're going to be cast. Again, feel isn't that, cast doesn't mean it's hard. Material determines that, and how it's cast determines that. So pings, which I've used for years, they do have a forged line, but at the end of the day, and their forged line is in the £200 bracket. The Edisons are in the £200 bracket. If you were forging a Wedgeworks putter, a Wedgeworks Vokey, then you're going to be looking at, I would think, £250. If you were looking for one of those, they're not available. Tour players are using them, of course, but they're not generally available for the public. So they become a little bit more exclusive. And then you get into your PXGs at $450. Wedges then start to get really expensive, and they are consumable parts of the golf bag. Your driver, you could get away with using your driver for 2 or 3 years. There's not a huge amount of advancement. The manufacturers won't like me for saying that, but what are you going to get, a yard or two? There's limits, so there's only so much that they can get out of the club. The ball can only come off the club face at a certain amount of speed, so you're not going to get massive advancements out of that now. More to come next week. We'll share with you. I'm looking forward to it. I've got a busy week. Coaching diary is nearly full, so I'm going to get to it. So thanks, Gareth, again.
Thanks, Andy.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You know where to find us on the social posts at Andy Gorman Golf. We do appreciate you listening, because we can do it without you, but we'd rather not. So keep listening. Stay safe, and we'll catch up with you soon.